just going to start off with the cover, which has a blurb by Neil Gaiman on the front. Usually, if I downloaded this as an audiobook, so I didn't see that. When I saw that, it has a blurb from Neil Gaiman on the front, I went, ugh. Not because Neil Gaiman isn't sometimes a really great writer, but that oftentimes I've had very bad luck with books that he has blurbed the front of. Spoiler alert! Good book. So let's get that out of the way. I am talking about, this is a review of The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin, a 2020 urban fantasy novel. And oh boy, this is as urban fantasy as you could get, because cities are the literal characters, and the cities and their boroughs are the literal characters in this urban fantasy novel. So I thought that was hilarious right off the bat. N.K. Jemisin, American science fiction fantasy author, super big in the field. Her books in the Broken Earth series, all 3 books in that trilogy, each one won a Hugo Award for its year. And while you can weigh the Hugo Award one way or the other, it's voted on by the participants in the big science fiction their big science fiction convention. It's a big thing, and she is multiple awarded in all sorts of areas where her fellow authors are voting on this stuff, and science fiction fans. So, wow, big. This is my second try with N.K. Jemisin. I started off trying her debut novel, The 100,000 Kingdoms, which was a start of a trilogy itself, and I just could not get into the book. I couldn't find my hooks into it. I recognized her as a really good author, but the book, I bounced off it. I don't even know if I actually finished it, and I definitely didn't try go along in the series, probably because of that. So this is my kind of first try back, listening to it as an audiobook, narrated by Robin Miles, yeah, let's get into it. So the premise of this book is that cities get to a certain level of maturity, certain level of kind of people, age, all that stuff, kind of richness of history, of culture, and they become sentient. And how they become sentient is avatars of the city come forth. And indeed, in the very kind of opening, kind of like introduction of this book, New York is born, and it's a young queer black man who steps off a train. Was he step off a train? I can't remember. No, actually, he doesn't. That's Manny. He is the new avatar, but this is like the next development in the city. But what happens is some kind of dark outside influence. We find out outside of this dimension influence tries to kill him, tries to kill New York in its grave as this modern city. This is happening in contemporary times. Our contemporary times is trying to kill him, and very nearly succeeds. And he seems to New York with the aid of San Paulo, is able to fight off this thing and win. But at the very moment of his victory, he kind of he collapses and he disappears. He kind of just vanishes in Paulo's arms and is gone. And what the rest of the book is his avatars of the 5 boroughs of New York, having to get together and trying to unite, trying to figure out what the hell's going on, try to locate New York. Manhattan does catch a brief glimpse of him, like sleeping on some newspapers with some tiles, like a subway tile behind him, but that's all they have. And that force that New York battled at the very beginning comes back in the shape oftentimes of a woman in white, Dr. White, and there is kind of the great battle to okay, we have to fight off this force, we have to try and unite, we have to figure out where New York is, and see what we can do, and at what kind of a cost will healing the avatar of New York have for the rest of the boroughs, the rest of the on the rest of these characters who are very much, they're real people, but they're also Manhattan, Queens, the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Staten Island. And what effect is this going to have on them? And indeed, is everybody who all these avatars going to work together, or will some work at what seems like basically exactly opposite of their own self-interests? And the book goes from there, using kind of very much kind of the language of what seems to be New York to me. I think N.K. Jemisin is someone who is has spent a lot of time in New York. At least that's the feel I get for it, as a Canadian who has visited New York 2 or 3 times in my lifetime. But so I only have the vaguest sense. But it's like through the characters, through their embodiments of their boroughs, we really get kind of like a sense of New York and kind of the battles that are going on here. This is the real pluses of this book is that it's a urban fantasy that is political. It's as political as New York is. It's as fractious. It is, we're getting into all the social, political, racial, class stuff that goes on in this city, and it finds a way of embodying this in fantasy terms of these characters, and to get to. There's a lot of discussion, maybe too much discussion, a lot of discussion of the various ways that this city operates, and how this makes these embodiments of their boroughs interact with each other and fight with each other and clash with each other. It definitely is one of these things of like, it's a city that's trying to unite against an outside force, but it's having a lot of trouble, and there's a lot of bumps along the way, and there's just as much infighting in this book as there is fighting this outside force. This outside force, which N.K. Jemisin has this kind of genius thing of Dr. White is like, well, why can't you be civilized? Why can't you be polite while I'm trying to exterminate you? Which perhaps this is just reading that I've been doing, stuff like Clearing the Plains, where a lot of kind of white settler governments came into areas and said like, well, why can't these natives be, civilized, as we're butchering them and starving them to death and shoving them off their land? Why can't they be polite and civilized? It's like that really resonated with me. It's like, oh, you've caught that. That's a great dramatization of that, like, aggressive, overwhelming forces coming against you, and saying that, and having the gall to say at the same time, you're not being civilized really right now. You're not being polite about all this. I'm asking you to cooperate with me while I destroy your entire world. Why can't you do that? Why can't you be civilized like that? It's like, oh, so it was like, that kind of stuff was really good. It's also, a book where, we have stuff like, just sort of some of the ideas of, like, doxing, there is a anti-racist group, like, why are you being so racist to white people group, which is using kind of the tools of doxing and, internet harassment, and, them using the heroes of the book using their own kind of counter battles with that sort of stuff. So it's a book that's like, really, this is like in the present. And I know N.K. Jemisin, through some of like stuff with like the Sad Puppies movement, which is a right-wing, really crappy movement that was prevalent in science fiction a couple of years ago, and unfortunately is just the start of what kind of stuff that just leaked everywhere in our society, where I know N.K. Jemisin is well aware from a personal point of view of that kind of crap, and she manages to kind of incorporate it into the book of a fantasy world, and put that, like, have the villains being like that, which I thought was, it's good. It's fair turnabout is fair play in a lot of ways. There's also stuff like, Bronca is the Bronx is the head of a art gallery, and there's this whole thing of like, oh, a wealthy investor will come in and give you tons of money. However, they're going to subtly shape exactly what art you show, what shape art you're going to promote, and, oh, we want you to bring in some of this stuff. It's like that, how that money never comes without strings attached to it. And, where, this is like the this Bronx collective is supposed to actually kind of let the people of the Bronx express themselves, but big money's coming in to try and shape things. And again, it turns out it's a corporation that is connected with Dr. White. So I really enjoy. I can see now. This is the thing: is that you might hear all this and think, "Oh, this kind of contemporary politics in my urban fantasy. I don't like that." I like that. I like that. So fair warning for anyone out there who that's maybe not their thing. I mean, I think everything is political, but I can understand where you might not be pumped up by that as much as I was. So, and just the kind of the cast here of, like, I talked about Bronca, who is a Native American, so it's kind of going all the way. She is the oldest of the avatars, and it's going back all the way to kind of the Native Americans who were at before it was New York. We got Brooklyn, who was once a rap star and is now city councilwoman, and sort of acknowledging her quote problematic past, where she used a lot of stuff that was homophobic or sexist herself, just to kind of fit in within this kind of the rap community, and how she's kind of like gonna have to apologize for that stuff that she did while trying to actually kind of further herself as she goes along. And Bronca actually being one of the people who's like, I remember you when you were spewing all this stuff. And so she says, like, yeah, that was me. And hopefully I've changed. We've got Padme as Queens, who is is it Tamil? I think a Tamil immigrant who is here on visa, which is definitely like, oh, that's another part of this city and another part of, like, Canada and the United States. It's like, it's a city, it's a country of the immigrants who are here, and even if they're not officially citizens, they're still like, that's a vital, super important part of life, of how enriching us. And yeah, I've talked about Manny, who is this multiracial guy who actually, he steps off the train and his memory is wiped. He can't remember his past. But throughout the book, you start getting these hints of, oh, he's somebody who has left where he was to come to the city to have a new life, to try and be a better person, be more positive, and perhaps learn a lot of stuff about himself, including what his relationship with the New York Avatar is, which I thought was really good. And we've got Aslan and Iceland. She's an Irish American woman who is the daughter of a abusive, racist cop, and she was, I think, I struggled with her character the most, because it was like, oh, she's like kind of the one that, like, I guess I could think of her as the closest to me. It's like, oh, seeing myself there. But she is kind of the lower class, and she's got a lot of racist, xenophobic ideas about the others of himself, and indeed, it's that kind of racial, xenophobic fear that makes her such fertile ground for the villain in this piece. And you're like, oh, I want her. It's like, if this was just a straight fantasy story, this would be the character I want to, like, have the big flip and the big revelation. But then you think about this as mapping on to kind of social political stuff, and I think about kind of people who are in tough situations, who are really being trampled down by the big corporations and stuff like that, but have all this kind of racism and fear stoked in them, that they end up working exactly opposite to what their own self-interests are, siding with super billionaires, right-wing super billionaires who maybe, are the head of certain countries at the moment, instead of actually going, that's not who I should be siding against. They do not have my interests at heart. They don't give a fuck about me. They are going to they're going to use you to destroy everyone else, and you're going to get destroyed too, but you don't understand that. And it's like once I kind of, like, I could make that mental jig, I was like, okay, that kind of character really did make sense in this, even though I had kind of these fantasy trope ideas of thinking Narnia and Edmund and Eustace in that those being characters who were betrayers or something. Spoilers, I guess, slight spoilers there, but you can tell right from the beginning that Iceland is going to have difficulties here. And has had a lot of difficulties, and there's difficulties as a class, but also as a gender of a deeply misogynistic society, and how that is really messed her up too. So I mean, I thought those are God, I'm just going on all the super positives of it. The negatives are I found it at the start very slow, and before I was getting to know characters, especially since you start off with New York, the New York avatar, and then you start off with Manny, who doesn't have any memory of who he was before. It was like, this is maybe a little too abstract. I don't know who these people are. They just seem to be their avatars. This is New York. This is Manhattan. And they don't really know, they don't have personality. But then you get into Brooklyn, and you get into Bronca, and you get into Padme, and it's like, oh, and Iceland, and it's like, oh, these are people, and it picked up from there. But at the beginning, it was like, oh God, is this going to be another book where it's just too abstract for me? But as it went on, I got to know these people, and the wonderful Robin Miles doing the audio narration. She got all the voices, the different accents and flavors of New York, and I think that probably even added to my experience of the book. And also because the other negative is maybe there's a lot of speeches in here. There's a lot of more talking than there is doing in here. The having someone who was so great at talking was made that action packed in itself. Whereas maybe if I'd just been reading it on the page, it would be a little bit more dry, because I don't have that. I don't have that in my head, and I can't bring it into my head. And I have to say, the other negative here is the end, because I got partway into the book and I went, oh, this isn't a standalone book. This is going to be part of a series. So we're not going to have a finale. We're not going to have a final at the ending. But actually the book did have an ending, except the ending was, we had all the stuff. And then at the very end, we suddenly have a chapter where there's a showdown, and it sort of reminded me of there's a thing on YouTube of Screen Rant of the pitch, and the guy will say, well, how are they going to get out of that? And it was like, oh, it's super easy, barely an inconvenience. And unfortunately, the showdown at the end here felt a little bit super easy, barely inconvenience. It's like, oh my God, they have trouble, but they solve that, and we're done. And I mean, you can tell that it is it's a little showdown to put at the end of this book, because we're going to be going along to have more stuff happening in the next trilogy, which I'm going to move on with. But I did find that a bit of a weak sauce ending there. That said, I just really enjoyed an urban fantasy where the city was the protagonist, and the boroughs were the protagonists of the city, and it felt like, oh, this is people talk about, oh, the city was a character in the book. It was like, well, no, this is a book where the city is literally a character in this book, and the boroughs, these individual boroughs, are really characters in this book, and I really enjoyed that. So it was a really fun, different urban fantasy novel. So that I really enjoyed that. And I love the politics in it. I love politics, and challenging politics to me. I had to say, challenging politics to me. It's like there was a part of me going, oh, the only white character, she's not like a hero. She's not like a superhero. It's like, yeah, I guess now I know how maybe other people feel coming to all these super white books where there is not even a person of character, or if there is, it's a throw off little sidekick character. So, but there was an actual political reason. There's a political underpinning reason why this was the case. So yeah, I really enjoyed that book. And I will go on with the series, The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. More videos later.